The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
We're going to take a little trip down memory lane today. We're also going to get to your Twitter questions on the Russo Hockey Show. This is our hockey show on TalkNorth.com. Please follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. Please subscribe to this show and the network at Talk North on your favorite podcast app. Appreciate Brandon and all of our sponsors. We'll tell you more about them later. Michael, I think you and I had a similar week. I got a call. Somebody's writing a big piece at The Ringer on the Dallas Morning News and the great sports sections of the 80s and 90s, I guess 70s, 80s, and 90s. And back then, really, the Dallas Morning News, the Boston Globe were probably at the peak. And then there were places like the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel where he worked, which was a massive, massive section, excellent people. And he started reminding me of just how massive sports sections used to be, what kind of resources they used to spend. I still remember, and I kind of grew up at the Dallas Morning News. Went there making $10 an hour and no benefits, and kind of worked my way up the ladder. But I remember the day Len Bias died, our sports editor called up our college basketball writer and said, "Get on a plane right now, go to Len Bias's hometown and write me the ultimate Len Bias story." So just last second airfare, stay wherever you want in the hotel, eat whatever you want. Basically no expense limits, 30-page sections. And there are still a lot of good sports sections in the country, including the Star Tribune, but the scope just isn't where it used to be.
No, it isn't. And I think the Star Tribune might be the best sports section in the country, quite frankly. Maybe Boston Globe's still up there, but you're right. I mean, you look around the country now and you look at the sports sections and how they've been thinned out. It's downright frightening. And I don't think that people realize, like when I first started as a sports writer in the early 90s, and mid 90s, when I became full-time at the Sun-Sentinel, I mean, we had 25, 30-page Sunday sections where, broadsheets. My Sunday column at the Sun-Sentinel used to be like 50 or 60 inches. It was just absolutely gigantic. And we were, I think, one of the best sports sections in the country, top 10 in every category, every single year in all the polls, all the APSE stuff. I mean, we had unbelievable sports writers that started even before me. Guys like Mitch Albom, Bill Plaschke was there. Gordon Eads, one of the great baseball writers of all time. Jeff Calkins, Mike Berardino. I mean, our baseball coverage down at the Sun-Sentinel was outstanding. I mean, Ira Winderman has been a basketball writer there since the inception of the Miami Heat. And outstanding. I mean, Karen Krause from the New York Times was the hockey writer she's at the New York Times now. She was the hockey writer at the Sun-Sentinel that preceded me. It was absolutely unbelievable. Our college football stuff was ridiculous. And you're right. It's funny because I took a trip down memory lane this week. Mark Walleman, who's my old supervisor, my old editor at the Star Tribune, he's now the NHL Enterprise editor at the Athletic. And he sent me something on our interoffice messaging system the other day about how they were picking the all Florida all-time high school football teams. And also there was an all South Florida high school football team, which is off the charts. And he was like, you should have been on the panel because you covered a lot of these guys. And all of a sudden I started looking at these names, and then I started Googling these old stories that I did on them. And I just took this crazy trip down memory lane, Jim, where I was looking at articles that I wrote when I was like 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Really got reminiscent thinking about how my stepfather used to drive me to a lot of these games, because this was even before I had my driver's license, where you had to drive with an adult after dark. So he used to take me to all these games, and I would cover the games, and I would go back to the Sun Sentinel or the Boca News, and he would sit in the lobby and wait for me writing my articles. So that was one trip down memory lane I took. But I started reading these stories about these features that I wrote on Anquan Boldin when he was the quarterback of Pahokee High School, or Fred Taylor when he was the running back at Glade Central, or doing features on guys like Mitch Richmond or Tommy John when he was the baseball coach at Westminster Academy, or A-Rod when he was just a young high school sophomore at Westminster Christian. And it was just, I couldn't believe these stories still existed on the Sun Sentinel website. But two, Travis Henry, I spent a day with him in Frostproof when he was about to break Emmitt Smith's state rushing record. And I was just reading these articles, and the one thing that kept on jumping out to me, it was they were garbage. Like I was so bad. Like, it's unbelievable how just awful these articles were. And and it made me really reflect on the people that really gave me my opportunity and had faith in me, that allowed me to now be in this business for 30 years. I mean, it's crazy to me. Like, Fred Turner was the Sun Sentinel hockey writer, and a little story there is, so we had Dave Joseph, who was one of the best writers of, I think, ever. He was a hockey writer there. Then it was Ray Murray, and then it was Karen Krause, and then it was me as the Florida Panthers beat writer. But they offered the job to a guy named Mike Ulmer, who was an outstanding hockey writer in Toronto. He actually took the job, and I was devastated, because I thought this was going to be my big chance to cover the Panthers. I had covered them for 2 or 3 years as sort of a backup to the backup before, and I thought I was getting this job in 1997. And then Ulmer obviously accepts the job, and I don't behoove the Sun Sentinel for hiring a veteran hockey writer at that point. And then Ulmer, Mike's wife, I believe it was, just finally just like, I really don't want to move to South Florida from Toronto, and I think that was the reason. But he pulled out of the job, and on the night before a New York Rangers game, Fred Turner calls me up and offers me the job, and I come into the Sun Sentinel. I'm so excited. By the way, this is 2 weeks after my grandfather died, so I think it's sort of, I think it's fate there. And he sits down with me and he tells me what I'm going to make, and I'm just so excited. And the next day, I'm covering the New York Rangers as the full-time beat writer, with Wayne Gretzky on the team, full-time beat writer as the covering the Florida Panthers. And it makes you realize that, like, how the heck Fred gave me this job when I was, really early on, so bad. I mean, at this point, I'm probably, 5 or 6 years into it, so I'm probably a little better. But he had faith in me. Brian White, one of the editors down there, Dave Brousseau, who's one of their high school editors. You know Brian White well, right?
Yeah, good friend.
Yeah. Brian White was my editor down there. Really took me under his wing and made my writing better. He once told me that my writing was pedestrian, and I've never forgotten that word, and I hate that word ever since. And he really helped me. But I mean, he helped me out to make me a better writer. And Dave Brousseau was the high school writer and encyclopedia down there. I mean, he knew absolutely everything, kind of like Dave LeVake. He knew everything, and really allowed me to just take Palm Beach County and basically become the sort of this, as a not even a full timer, like the star high school writer down there, covering Palm Beach County and all those great athletes down there and things like that. Dave O'Brien, the baseball writer at The Athletic that covers the Atlanta Braves, he was the high school writer that really helped me early on down there, and then you get here to Minnesota and you have editors like Mark Walleman and Glenn Crevier and Chris Miller, and again you just think, reading these articles, Jim, and I'm just like, God, I cannot believe these people gave me a chance, because really terrible articles.
Well, when you're young in this business, you have to hustle. And
Yes.
If you hustle, people will give you the benefit of the doubt, and it will give you time to get better, because I had the same experiences. I wrote a lot of crap. I tried too hard. I overwrote. I went for one-liners that I shouldn't have been going for when you're a high school writer, just trying to basically fill in the score on a Friday night. But if you hustle, then your superiors will give you a chance to get past that stage and to get better. If you don't hustle and you write poorly, you're dead.
Yeah, no, and that was always my thing. I mean, it's been my thing my entire career because I'm still not a great writer, but it's been work ethic, and that's and passion. Like I remember being in the Sun Sentinel newsroom, being like a 16-year-old doing, answering phones, taking box scores over the phone. And this is back again. We talked early in this podcast, Jim, about the Ringer story that they're doing on these great sports sessions. Well, that was back when box scores of high school games would be in the newspaper. Now that just doesn't exist anymore. And so that was my job there. I would come down there on every night in high school and answer calls, and I developed relationships with these high school performers and these high school coaches. Some of them are still good friends of mine, and that's how I sort of developed also what it's like to talk and ask questions and develop sources and things like that. And I was telling a young hockey writer the other day here at the Athletic that I'm trying to sort of mentor to become better, that this is now the time where you can really develop good reporting skills and great relationships with the players on your team. Because right now we have no PR people, right? There's no sports going on. So it's kind of up to us to go get stories, right? Now, obviously you go through PR on some things and things like that. But this is a time where, the other day, I've covered Jared Spurgeon since 2010, right? Or maybe even before. I don't even remember when he made his NHL debut. And the other day I talked to him on the phone for 25, 30 minutes, only 5 of which was for the articles that I was working on. And the other was just shooting the breeze with them. And this is Jared Spurgeon, a guy that I've covered 10 years that I've never had this type of long conversation with. And that's the best thing about covering hockey right now. It's like this morning I woke up at 8 a.m. and I had a story idea that popped in my head yesterday. And I texted 6 or 7 players, and all of them have written me back, yeah, just call me at this time, call me at this time, call me at this time. That's the great thing about covering the NHL. And now is the time that you could kind of, as a young hockey writer or a veteran hockey writer, develop these relationships that we learned when we had to do this for ourselves back early in our careers, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been lucky to cover a couple of teams that weren't hockey teams that I could get people like that. The early 2000 Twins, the mid 2000 Twins, the Dallas Cowboys in '89. I had a lot of good relationships there, and some of the Vikings players I covered in the early '90s. And those now these days, there's so many national writers who are pursuing news like that. It's harder for a local beat writer to have like a great relationship with all the NFL players, or whatever. But there's still ways. But hockey's different.
Hockey's
more down to earth players than any other sport.
Like, what league, can you sit there and just text Patrick Kane? I mean, I was going to say Patrick Kane, for a story that I did the other day, or just like, like the other day I needed Bettman for a story, and the PR guy's just like, yeah, give me 5 minutes, and Bettman calls me up. That's this league. It always has been. Again, you wake up this morning and you text guys like Ryan Suter and Parisi and Spurgeon and Stahl and Guerin and all these people like, hey, I got this story idea. Would you be willing to talk for this? Yes. I'm working on this story on the 2014 Game 7 that's going to run probably on Monday. I've talked to 15 people for it. I mean, everybody from Ilya Brizgalov to Danny Heatley to Nino Niederreiter. It's just, this, if you work hard and develop and show the people that you cover on an everyday basis that you love the sport, you have a passion for it, and you have a work ethic, it helps you down the road in situations like this where there's no sports going on, but you have these relationships with these players to get you back. And that's what I think young writers just don't do a lot of today. A lot of young writers don't try to break news. Because in today you break a story and you've broken it for 1 second because now you gave it to the other writers and they just, confirmed, where now's the time, though, that you can write these really good readers, as we like to call them in the business, because these players are bored like all of us. They're just at home. They are, a lot of them are dads, so they are busy that way and things like that. But a lot of these players, like Mikko Koivu gave us a half hour of his time yesterday, and he was probably excited to do it, right? Because these players have nothing to do right now. So now's the time that that you can really, sort of create your mettle in terms of doing this job. And I just think that has sort of reinvigorated me to back into these early years when, you really learn how to have conversations, how to listen. Too many hockey writers, too many reporters today, Jim, go into interviews with like 25 questions written down and it reads staged. It doesn't read like you're shooting the shit with them. It and you don't listen to what they're saying back because you're not having that conversation. And I just think that's what I really learned valuable when I was a young teenager and early 20s doing this job, is how to not be scripted when you go into these interviews. You basically, I mean, I hate to say it, maybe I'd be better if I prepped a little more, but I go in blind because, part of my biggest strength is probably having conversations with people that churn out other types of stories. That was in high school. I remember still to this day, when I was on the debate team, I was the guy that did extemporaneous speaking, which is where they give you a topic that you don't prepare for. You just have to basically, BS your way through it. And that's sort of what I think that a lot of these writers can learn today. But to get back to your original point, Jim, I mean, I'm so thankful for the people that, really gave me my start, because as I said, I read some of these stories that I wrote in the Boca News and the Sun Sentinel, and I just, cannot believe really that this stuff was published in a major daily. And, if it wasn't for guys like Fred Turner and Brian White and all those people at the Sun Sentinel, then, again, coming to the Strib and Glenn and Mark Wallerman and Chris Miller, I would not be where I'm sitting today.
Guess who won the double gold medal for taste in the Denver International Spirits Competition for 2020? Good
I know.
guess.
I know. Grey Duck Vodka.
Grey Duck Vodka, our primary sponsor, one of our newer sponsors on the network, and of course, affiliated with Chad Greenway, who was on our Preps show with John Millay recently talking about high school sports and youth sports. It was a really good segment. Check that out if you like. So yeah, Grey Duck Vodka wins the double gold. Second year that Grey Duck has received gold medals in the double blind competition, receiving 97 out of 100 points. In addition to the double gold, Grey Duck was awarded second place, best in show out of 450 spirits entered in the competition. This is the fifth gold medal for Grey Duck, which is amazing since it's a very new company, including 3 gold medals for taste in 2019 and a double gold for design. And winning the double gold in 2020, the judges noted great aroma, balanced sweet finish, and inviting. And great thing about Grey Duck is it's a Minnesota vodka. It is going to be available in Minnesota. I'm certainly having my 5 o'clock cocktails as we get through the pandemic, and it really does have a nice sweet taste. I noticed that the first time I had it. Highly recommend it. Grey Duck Vodka, both because it's a Minnesota vodka, because you love Chad Greenway, and because they support this network and this show. Check out Grey Duck Vodka, and thanks for their support. Let's go to some Twitter questions. Any hockey news you want to get to before I go to Twitter questions?
Not much. I mean, other than really the updates on what's going on with the league. Obviously, the self-quarantine has been extended through April 30th. I'm sure it's going to be extended again. Trying to think what else. Bettman has been really, I would say, vocal about the fact that the hope is, again, to return and resume in some sort of fashion this summer. And he has made it very clear that he feels like teams like the Minnesota Wild, who have played fewer games than a lot of teams that are 1 point out, should have a way to continue playing, whether that's some sort of resumption of the regular season, some sort of play-in tournament, or what I think is a more likely scenario is an expanded playoff, which maybe 20 teams. If you bring it to 20 teams in the West, I think all the teams that should be there would be there. The one little issue is in the East. You might have to extend it to even 21, because I think Florida is the one team that probably should be in that would be cut off if you went to 20. There are websites out there that you can actually create brackets. You can enter how many teams are going to be in your playoff, what would be the scenarios if there was a 3-game series, a 5-game series, 7-game series. And I was playing around with one site the other day, and I'm sorry it totally escapes me. And if the NHL went to a expanded format of 20 and there were buys, most likely the Wild's first round scenario would be Calgary in the way that I was doing it. But we'll see.
Interesting. Well, honestly, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if they found a way to come back and the Wild was actually in the playoffs and we got to get back to sports with the Wild?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody can predict the timeline at this point, but that's at least just a possibility of encouragement.
I mean, the one thing I just still can't get my head wrapped around is frankly, playing games without fans in the arenas, which I think we are all going to have to get used to.
Yep.
I just, hockey is so driven by the excitement you get from the crowd, especially in the postseason. I was talking to one player the other day, and I said, "Let me ask you a question. You're one of the most enthusiastic players I've ever seen after scoring a goal. Could you imagine that there'll even be goal celebrations anymore?" And he was just like silent. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't think of that." Or just imagine imagine in an empty arena and the fact that in the press box, you would be able to hear everything. You could hear
Mhm.
probably what a coach is screaming at a referee. You could hear
Oh, yeah.
the lines being called up. I say it'd be strange, but I think we are. I just think that as we slowly get back to normalcy eventually, that is probably going to have to be the way that it's going to go. I mean, could you imagine what life is going to be like after this? I mean, just going into an arena now. Will they take your temperature? Will you have to? Will you not be permitted without a mask? Will there be staggered seating in arenas? Um, Flying around the country, there be no middle seats anymore? The world as we know it, I don't think is just going to magically get back to normal here, right?
No, I think we're a year and a half out from anything that would feel normal. The question is, can we execute sports between now and then? And as the saying goes, the virus is in charge. Hey, thanks to Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund, handles my insurance, handles Michael Russo's insurance. No matter what's happening in the world, you need insurance. You want to have somebody you trust. We do trust Tony Hoagland.
Every team knows that the two-point play can be a winning move. That's why State Farm agent Tony Hoagland and his team are here to help you go for two by combining your home and auto insurance. It's a great call that saves you time and money. So go for the win and score savings by combining your home and auto. It's just another way we're here to help life go right. Call State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at 763-421-4900 or online at champlaininsurance.com.
Here's a question from Steve Hoagland. Has Kaprizov hired a new agent yet? And can he sign a contract with a contingency to start the season if the NHL resumes and decides to allow new contracts to start the season?
Yeah. First of all, the report that was out there from Russia a couple of weeks ago that these guys can sign before May 1st, I think is false. Every agent I talk to says that these guys aren't allowed to sign until after May 1. So I, right now, at a minimum, don't expect Kaprizov to, and a GM told me that too, that Kaprizov would sign in advance of May 1. I do believe I know who his new agent is. His new agent and the Wild are not commenting because it is so delicate. I don't know if it's because it's not signed on the dotted line anymore, or or they're just worried that this stuff is public. I don't think anybody expected me to find out that Milstein was not, let's call him not signed by Kaprizov. And so in terms of your other question, yeah, I wrote the other day that right now, what I am told, that Bill Guerin did confirm to me. I was told this by sources, and I've been trying to track it down for about a week, and Bill Guerin did confirm it to me and other people. I mean, I knew it, was that if the NHL season resumes and the Wild are in the playoffs and Kaprizov is able to come over to the United States, again, we're in a weird situation right now. He wants to start right away. The Wild have never wanted him to start right away because it gets him closer to essentially free agency and closer to signing a new big second contract. And but he wants to burn the first year of the deal, and the Wild are going to do nothing right now to tick him off. He wants to come; they're going to do it. Much to their chagrin, they would let him burn the year. So the way that would work is then most likely if they can sign him after May 1st, they would announce that he quote agreed to terms. And the way that would work is essentially what he's done is agreed to two terms. One, if the season resumes, that is, and the NHL permits it, that he would be allowed to sign now, or two, it would be a 2-year deal that starts next season. Remember, as of right now, the league is not allowing contracts to start this season, both for college free agents, European free agents, and then people that are even on your reserve list, like Kaprizov, who are yet to sign their entry-level contracts. That could change. That might not change. Even if the league comes back, the league might not allow that to change. So even if Kaprizov wants to start now, it's not known yet if he can start now.
Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. Also, do us a favor. This is a great time for people to get used to listening to podcasts. Believe me, you're going to run out of TV shows and movies. You can listen to a podcast while you take a walk around your neighborhood as the weather gets nicer. You can sit in your house, look out a window. You can have your headphones on as you do household chores. Good time to listen to podcasts. Please encourage your family and friends to check out our network, Talk North. We would appreciate it. We've added a bunch of new outdoor shows. We've also added Nadine Babu and Gopher Hole. We're producing a lot of content, including recent interviews with Rich Pitino and Lindsay Whalen. So do us a favor, check us out, and let us know what you think. Let's get to our next Twitter question.
My favorite show is the Krasinski show because I get to hear his accent. So,
oh, yeah.
Did you read Krasinski's tribute to Kat's mom?
Yeah.
Man, John is just it's just such a good story.
Yeah,
it's one of those made you kind of give you a little tear.
Oh, absolutely. It's crushing, and that's the problem with that kind of story. The better you do it, the more the reader wants to cry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
From Kyle Bonstrom, is Donato going to take number 16 now?
I don't think he definitely hasn't asked. I remember I'm almost positive that his dad's number at Harvard when he played was number 6. So even though Donato has worn 16 at the collegiate level and USA hockey level, I don't think he wore it in the Bruins organization. I think he was 17 for some reason, but I'm not positive. I don't think he has at least asked if he could change his number right now. So just because maybe it was his dad's number, maybe he'll keep it, or maybe he's just saying, I'll ask later in the summer. I don't want to bother Ryan with that question right now. Ryan was really good friends with Colby Cave, the hockey player that died the other day at age 25 from a brain bleed. Just awful story. He had a cyst on his brain. They went in and operated, and something obviously went terribly wrong. 25 years old. I talked to Kyle Brodziak for another story I'm working on for next week. And Brodziak was just telling me how incredible of a guy Colby Cave was when they played together in Edmonton. So I really send my condolences out to Ryan and his girlfriend Bradley, and I know they were really, really good friends with Colby and his wife Emily.
Wow. So much going on these days.
Yeah.
All right. Back to a couple more hockey questions. From General Soros, our friend Lonnie, is there any appetite in the league for referees to start cracking down on all the cross-checking that goes on for a league that claims to want more scoring? Why has this become an effective and accepted defensive tactic?
Yeah, I mean, it always has been. It really has. I mean, I have the appetite for it, but I'm not sure the league does. I think they should. Now, those of us and Lonnie, who's been a hockey fan for a long time, that watched games in the 80s and 90s, the Chris Prongers of the world, the Darian Hatchers of the world, the Adam Foots of the world, the Rob Blakes of the world, players like that, the Ludwigs, they know he probably knows it used to be a hell of a lot worse. I mean, the stuff that you can get away with in front of the net years ago, slashes, the violent cross checks and things like that does not happen in today's NHL. So that's why I think when we see it, we're so shocked when it's just let go. So I still think that the league has made incredible strides since we all started becoming hockey fans. If you're as old as I am, or older, I'm sure that in the 70s and early 80s, I've seen those games, the highlights. I'm sure it was a lot worse than it even is back in the 80s, late 80s and early to mid 90s. So the league has cracked down. They've tried to, but I agree that it should be. That's one of the things that still bothers me to this day. I mean, I do think that, that's one reason why guys like Zach Parise, have had back surgeries and things like that. And I think that the league should protect, gutsy, gritty players like Parise that put their bodies and health on the line by going to the dirty areas where you need to score goals.
Absolutely. Dan Goldberg, has the NHL ever considered not canceling a delayed penalty if the non-penalized team scores?
Yeah, they have that to be one way to they've talked about that. They've talked about allowing it like a major where you just don't have the penalty end. If you score a goal, you can score 2 goals, or score 3, score 4. That if it's a 2-minute penalty, it's a 2-minute penalty. I don't think they'll ever go to that. The way that all rule changes work is that there are recommendations from the GMs, and then that would go to a competition committee and the board of governors. And it's never gone down to that point where they, there are situations where a delayed penalty is not wiped out and the guy still has to go to the box, especially on 5-on-3s and things like that. But they're rare.
From Zach Brown, when was a time a source burned you on purpose? Has that ever happened? And have you ever caught a source blatantly lying to you to screw you over?
No, not that I've thought of. Usually your sources that you're going to trust are people that you are tight with, and not somebody that you'd be scared of. There have been situations I've worried about in the past, whether where stories would be potentially leaked to me to try to have a GM figure out who's doing the leaking. That's always made me
Mm-hmm.
nervous.
Mm-hmm.
That I have that was a recent fear of mine. And But not that anybody that has burned me or anything like that. Now, sometimes things are told to you that change. In today's world, things change. It's fluid. Something can be told to you and it could change. So, sometimes if you write something that turns out to be wrong, you're it just changes. I mean, a great example is I've been the one not cheerleading, but for lack of a better term, broadcasting for months now that the Wild would not start Kaprizov's contract immediately. Well, it's changed. Not because Bill Guerin was trying to, and that, by the way, all that was on the record. That was not given to me by a source. It's not that Bill Guerin was trying to burn me. It's changed. Now they want to get Kaprizov signed. He wants to start. They're not going to tell him no. If anything, it's going to give fans and him a good indication of what the NHL is all about. So that's changed. Stories change.
What's from Chris Labresh? What has been the best retirement celebration for a player on a team either of you have covered? You go first, or I can go.
Yeah,
I'll go first. Mariano Rivera, when he retired, instead of doing a tour where he accepted gifts, and people still gave him gifts, but he said he wanted to have a session with people who worked behind the scenes at every major league stadium. So he came to the Twins. I was lucky to be the media person who was allowed to cover it. I go in there and it's cooks, it's grounds crew, it's people who ushers from the press box, people who actually do the hard work of putting on, of support, being support staff. These are not people who make a lot of money. And Mariano Rivera basically had a question and answer session where he met everybody, answered their questions, and just did a nice little thing for them. That's the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything that I know of like that. But I mean, in terms of celebrations, pretty much it's the downtowner for almost every single celebration. This year, there felt like there were like 5 1,000 game or retirement celebrations. Trying to think. Not that I really don't know of. It's not retirement, but I remember Matt Cullen's 1,000th game was the game where I accidentally crashed my car into Nick Schultz's
Yep, that's one of
Porsche.
my favorite stories.
And
yeah.
I wasn't even at Cullen's party. I just happened to be across the street from Cullen's party at Tom Reed's. So
from Bruce Siskey, it's obvious that let's see. What is the most realistic scenario for a resumption of the delayed NHL season, and how late can they start the 2020-21 season and still play 82 games?
Well, Bettman has been pretty vocal about it potentially starting in November, and a lot of people have told me November. So that would mean the next year's awarded cup would be late June. I think that if they play this season in July or August, and award the cup by September 1st, that then you would have a draft by the second week of September. Free agency, a little window in late September. You'd have training camp starting around October, and then you'd start by November. It would be a couple years before we get back to absolute normal NHL schedule. And again, this is all assuming that we all continue to live our lives as we know it, even if coronavirus pops up next season in professional sports. You know what I mean? It's not going to just with a snap of the fingers disappear off this planet, right?
Nope.
And if it's true that it's going to be a year or so before a vaccine, I hate to say it like this, but there's just going to have to come a point where we all get back to life as normal and just accept the fact that people are going to test positive, and then they go away for a little while and then come back. But if we're just going to every single time stop all of our lives for people testing positive for COVID, then we're just never going to get back to normal, because you can't tell me that we're going to start 2021 in November and nobody's going to get COVID-19. playing as physical a sports as physical a sport as hockey is, or basketball, or football, or stuff like that. Touching the baseball in baseball, same thing. I mean, that's one reason why they're not there. They might allow golf, but they're not allowing tennis, right? Because you're still playing, you're touching the same ball.
Right.
And this virus could potentially live for a couple days on objects. So,
Yep.
I had a very productive day this morning. By 8 a.m., I disinfected my entire house. Normally that's my common routine every morning, but by 8 a.m., I had about 6 people agree to an interview, and I disinfected my entire house, Jim. So I'm very excited about that.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thanks.
From Tweet
It's the
96.
little things in today's world right now that's making us feel good.
What's making me feel good is my dogs. I'm glad to have dogs at home.
Yeah,
that's
I know.
what's
I
doing
was
it for
thinking.
me.
I was actually talking to Spurgeon about this yesterday. I was thinking about actually fostering dogs because I think
Be a
it'd be
great
tough.
idea.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Couple more Twitter questions. Oh, go ahead.
Have you seen his dogs on his social media? They were like bigger than him. He rescued them from. I think they're rescue dogs from secondhand hounds.
Oh wow, cool. Good for him.
Yeah, one of them that he was brushing on his Instagram account is honestly, it's like his size.
That's awesome. I'm glad he's doing that though. From Tweet 99, any chance we lose ECHL or AHL teams due to this downturn?
Yeah, I mean, it really obviously, as always, it's going to depend on the bailout that they get as a small business. It's going to depend if NHL owners own those teams. Like, the Iowa Wild is owned by Craig Leopold, so they're probably safe. But if you're a small market owner, a family owner of a small market hockey team, they're or USHL team or NAHL team or a premier team, it's going to be, it's going to be like any small business in the country, right? I mean, who knows?
Yep.
I mean, I really don't think I do like that a lot of these small businesses like restaurants are getting help right now. But I mean, who knows if I think it was Andrew Zimmern or somebody that I was hearing on Barrero recently where he was saying that he thinks that by the end of this, in 5, 6, 7 weeks, that a lot of these small restaurants aren't going to be able to come back. That, a lot of these owners don't have windfalls of money just sitting there.
No, and restaurants work on a very small margin. By the way, that reminds me, keep in mind our our partners who are on hiatus right now. That includes Tin Shed and Savage. Get your food there. Go get pickup there. They're taking care of their people. You can take care of them. Also, Fixology Repair, which is closed right now, and Twill in the Edina Galleria, which is our longest running sponsor. We certainly hope they can all get back up and running sooner than later. Let's do one more Twitter question. We never get to all the Twitter questions. We do appreciate you sending them in. It gives us a chance to pick out the ones that are most topical or the ones just that we can get to this week. From Peter, under Evison, it seemed like the Wild tried to possess the puck, entering the zone more and then dump and chase. Is that from front office analytics staff, or is Dean always coached that way?
I can't answer that exactly accurately. I do plan to talk to Dean. I hope to talk to Dean next week, and I can write that down to ask that type of question. I do agree with your observation that it did feel like the Wild possessed the puck more and wasn't always trying to dump and chase. I think at times they did it a little bit too much. It almost seemed like they stubbornly tried to do that. I know in that San Jose game it felt that way. I thought in LA game, which turns out to be the game that really crushed them in terms of not being in the playoffs right now. It just drove me crazy how they kept on trying to drive the puck in the net. I still think that one great way to play hockey is get the puck deep early, pound the crap out of other teams' defensemen, make them weary, tire them out. Push them into a point where their gaps are just absolutely brutal because they're one tired but too scared to get hit, and almost get into a pattern that they think that they're going to have to go retreat for that puck, and that's how you create open ice to be able to skate the puck in the zone. So that's always been my favorite way to watch hockey, or in terms of strategy, is early on in games, teams should always get the puck deep, and then yes, I mean it's like Pat Quinn used to say. It makes no sense to get rid of the puck. The whole point of hockey is to get the puck on your stick. So why, when you have it, would you throw it away? And that's what a lot of people don't like about the dump and chase game. But there are times where you have to do it. And there are times where if you're constantly turning the puck over at the offensive blue line because other defensemen are not allowing you the ability to skate through the neutral zone or skate into the offensive zone, you have to get rid of that puck and put it in proper placement and put it in areas where you can get it back. And you're right. I mean, if you're going to dump the puck, you better go chase the puck. And that was my problem with a lot of the times that we saw the Wild play a dump and chase game in yesteryear, is that if you're going to get rid of it, you better go work hard and get it back. And a lot of times the Wild didn't have that ability to go get the puck back, either because of work ethic issues back when I first started covering this team, or just poor puck placement, especially when you're playing against really quality puck handling goalies.
All right, one more question. Thanks again to Brandon. Thanks to everyone who listens. We do appreciate it. From Patrick John, what has been your favorite part of these last 8 weeks? I guess better way to put it was, what has, I'll just leave that question the way it's written. What's been the best part of your life, your experience the last 8 weeks?
I mean, quite frankly, not much. This is not, I want to get back to my life of traveling around the country and covering the games and covering the playoffs. I guess the best part of my, from a work perspective that I alluded to early in the show, is it's reminded me why I cover this sport. Just how simple it's been to deal with the Wild players. Again, I mean, this is just, what other sport can you just sit there and, you need Eric Stahl and you text him. You need Zach Parise and he writes you back in 1 second. I mean, it's just, that's you need a writer and he calls you on FaceTime audio from Switzerland in a minute. It's why you cover the sport. I mean, these guys, they're professional athletes that make millions of dollars, maybe not on par with what NBA players make or some Major League Baseball pitchers or the quarterbacks in football, but they are regular guys. I had Boudreaux on my podcast the other day, and he's just a sweet man. I mean, he's got I'm sure he's got an ego, but he's got, he's a down to earth dude. And so that's probably what I've enjoyed the most, is just, it's a good reminder when you're a tired old crotchety hockey writer that's done this for many years like me, that you get sort of, you get cynical and you forget, how lucky you are to cover this sport in particular.
Good stuff from Michael. Thanks to Brandon. Again, thank you for listening. Encourage your friends and family members to listen to Talk North. We'd like to keep this thing rolling and come out of this as well as every other small business that is fighting its way through this. So thank you. Thanks to Michael. We'll talk to you next week.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice, and I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going on.